Have you ever found yourself wide awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, heart pounding for a fear you couldn't even name? Maybe it's anxiety about work, fear of failure, or just that haunting feeling that you're not enough. The whole world is asleep, but your mind is racing trying to escape a battle you don't even know when or how it began. Have you ever wanted to start something new? But the moment the thought crossed your mind, your hands started shaking, your throat tightened, and you backed away? Maybe it was a job interview, a presentation, or just an important conversation. Fear always seems to show up when we need courage the most. It convinces you that you'll mess up, that people will judge you, that you're not capable, and instead of stepping forward, you stay still. But what if I told you that fear, anxiety, and panic aren't enemies from the outside, but tricks played by your own mind? And if your mind created them, then you also hold the key to unravel them, not by just saying positive affirmations, but by understanding how these emotions really work. The Buddha once said, "When you see fear clearly, it loses all its power." So how do you take back control of your mind so it no longer controls you? How do you not just manage anxiety, but transform it into inner strength? Right now, let's begin a journey together exploring 3 powerful and practical ways, grounded in Buddhist wisdom, to overcome fear, end anxiety, and build a life of freedom and calm from the inside out. 1. Fear is not real. It's just a thought in the mind. There was a woman in her 50s who once came to an evening meditation session at the temple. She sat silently for a long time, not speaking a word. And just as the session ended and most people had left, she quietly approached and whispered, "I don't know how to stop being afraid. I'm scared of everything." She didn't have to explain. You could see it in her eyes. This wasn't a passing fear. It was something that had lived inside her for years. Fear of loss. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of illness. Fear of aging. And perhaps, deepest of all, fear of being alone. Then she heard something simple shared gently by an old monk. Fear isn't a real monster. It's just a shadow on the wall, created by the light of your own mind. Fear, in truth, has never been a real, separate thing. It doesn't walk into the room like a stranger. It doesn't sit beside you. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder in the middle of the night. Fear only exists in thoughts. And our minds, when left unchecked, they're the ones painting these imaginary monsters. The Buddha said, "Fear arises and passes away in the mind. Once seen clearly, it loses all its power." He didn't say to fight fear. He didn't tell us to become fearless warriors. He simply invited us to see fear clearly, honestly, without flinching. Because to see fear is to see the truth, and truth sets us free. There's a story from the Buddha's lifetime. One day, he and his monks stopped by a village where a man known for his violence lived. People whispered warnings, "Don't go near him." But the Buddha walked straight toward the man. The man stared in disbelief. He asked, "Aren't you afraid of me? I could kill you right now." The Buddha calmly replied, "You could end this body's life, but fear, that only arises if I let it." The man stood frozen. For the first time, he met someone in whom fear had no place to hide. So what really makes us afraid? Usually, nothing that has actually happened. What scares us is the story we're already telling ourselves. What if I fail? What if they leave me? What if I'm not good enough? Those what ifs are like drops of water falling into the mind day after day until they form an ocean and we begin to drown. But what happens if you stop running and ask, "Okay, so what if I do fail? Then what?" When you look fear in the eye, often what you see isn't a monster. but a frightened child shaking, in the dark, just wanting to be seen, to be held. In mindfulness meditation, there's a very simple but powerful practice. Watch fear like a cloud drifting across the sky. Don't push it away. Don't hold on to it. Just observe. Just breathe. And let it pass. Someone once said after a meditation, "When I stopped resisting fear, it became quiet, like a barking dog that falls silent when no one reacts." In the West, we're taught that to be strong means to be fearless. But in truth, the strongest people are the ones willing to look at their fear without running away. Because looking into fear is looking into yourself. There was a successful doctor I once met, very skilled, very respected. But inside, he was haunted by the fear of not being good enough. Every time he faced a difficult case, he couldn't sleep, not because he lacked skill, but because his mind kept whispering, "What if I make a mistake? What if they find out I'm not perfect?" Eventually, he learned to slow down his breath, to write out his fears, and to simply say, "This is here right now, and that's okay." Little by little, the fear started melting. He no longer waited to feel fearless to do his work. He just greeted fear, smiled at it, and moved forward. There's an old saying, "Fear is the darkness, knowledge is the light, and with light, darkness has no place to hide." No one in this world lives without fear, but the difference lies here. Those who awaken no longer let fear drive their lives. They understand fear isn't the enemy. It's just a message, a gentle reminder saying, "Come back home. Look within." 2. The silent enemy within. How anxiety holds us back. Have you ever felt like you're in the middle of a battle, but you don't even know who you're fighting? You wake up in the morning, there are tasks to do, people to meet. On the surface, everything looks normal, but inside, something holds you back. A feeling you can't quite name, like a thin layer of fog covering your mind. No one else can see it. No one else can hear it, but you feel it. That is anxiety. And then, just as you're about to step outside, maybe to share an idea, apply for a job, or even make a simple, important phone call, a wave rises up from deep within. Your hands go cold, your heart races, your throat goes dry. Your whole body reacts like danger is just around the corner. But the truth is, there's no tiger in the room. No one's chasing you. It's just you and your own mind creating a storm that no one else sees. In Buddhism, anxiety and panic aren't seen as demons from the outside. They are shadows cast by the light of misunderstanding. And what's tricky is they pretend to be your protector. They whisper things like, "Don't speak up. What if they judge you? Don't try something new. What if you fail? Just stay where it's safe." They dress up like caution. But really, they slowly take away the most precious thing you have, your inner strength and your ability to move forward. There was a man in his 40s who once came to a retreat in California. He was a software engineer, successful, respected. But he said every time he had to speak in a meeting, even a small one, he felt like he was about to pass out. Not because he was unprepared, but because his mind would scream, "What if I mess up? What if they laugh at me?" He used to believe that anxiety was helping him stay sharp. But over time, he realized it wasn't helping at all. It made him shrink. He turned down opportunities. And little by little, he started doubting himself. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha spoke of 4 types of fear that arise in the mind: fear of loss, fear of criticism, fear of change, and fear of death. These don't come from the outside world. They arise from craving and ignorance, when the mind forgets the truth of impermanence. When anxiety shows up, most of us think, "I need to control everything." But trying to control is what fuels the stress. It's like drowning in water. The more you thrash, the faster you sink. There's a beautiful practice in Vipassana meditation. When panic arises, just sit. Be still. Observe. Don't try to change it. Don't analyze it. Just note. This is heat. This is restlessness. This is a fearful thought. One practitioner once said, "The first time I did that, I felt like I was stepping out of a cage. I was still scared, but I wasn't trapped by it anymore." And that's the truth. The power of anxiety lies in not being seen. It hides in the dark. But once the light of mindfulness touches it, it begins to weaken. Not disappear instantly, but lose its grip. The problem is, many of us were raised to think anxiety is a necessary instinct that protects us. Maybe it is for a moment, like when real danger is present. But when it shows up every day, in the smallest things, like sending an email, making a call, or taking a new step in your career, it's no longer protecting. It's holding you back. A woman in her 60s once shared, "I've lived most of my life holding my breath. As a young woman, I feared being judged. In midlife, I feared my kids wouldn't be okay. Now retired, I still fear I'm not useful anymore." She said that one morning, during a guided meditation, she simply returned to her breath gently, noticing the sensations in her chest and felt lighter. Not because the anxiety disappeared, but because she was no longer controlled by it. A Western teacher once said, "Anxiety is not the fire itself. It's the smoke you breathe when you forget that you're already safe." And when you look closer, anxiety doesn't live in the present. It lives in the what ifs. What if I fail? What if they leave me? What if something bad happens? It's those spiraling what ifs that confuse the mind. But the present moment where your breath is happening right now is not threatening. And here's the key. You don't need to wait for anxiety to disappear before you live. You don't need to wait for panic to fade before you move forward. You just need to see it clearly. You just need to not let it steer your life. Even if the fear is there, you can still take the next step if you can say to yourself, "I see the anxiety showing up, but I am not it." So, if there's something right now in your chest making it hard to breathe fully, know this: you are not alone. Anxiety is not your identity. It's just a passing cloud in the sky of your mind. And most importantly, you can still move forward, even with it beside you, as long as you see it, name it, and don't let it steer your ship. 3. Don't wait to stop being afraid. Move through it. There's something a lot of people don't realize until they've already missed too many chances in life. Fear doesn't go away just because you wait long enough. Some people wait to feel more confident, more ready, or less afraid before they take the next step. But here's the truth. That magical moment of less fear never really comes unless you dare to act while you're still afraid. There was a young man who once shared during a retreat at the monastery. He had a dream to stand on stage and speak to others about meditation and healing. But every time he was invited, he'd say, "No, I'm not ready yet. I'm still scared." And that fear followed him for years. Until one day, he came to a heartbreaking realization. He wasn't lacking ability, he was just lacking the courage to move forward while still trembling. This truth has been present in Buddhist teachings from the very beginning. When the Buddha was still Prince Siddhartha, he left the palace one uncertain night. Not because he had no fear, but because he chose to walk anyway, even with fear still in his heart. He didn't wait until he had no attachment, no doubt, no concern for the future. He simply knew truth cannot wait. And it was by walking through that uncertainty that true courage began to rise. Acting while still afraid, that's what builds resilience. Not everyone is born fearless. The ones who grow strong are those who understand. It's okay to be afraid, as long as you keep going. A woman in her 60s once wrote to us after attending a 10-day meditation course. She shared that she had always been afraid of change. After her husband passed, She wanted to move to a new city, to learn painting, to follow what she loved. But every day, she heard a quiet voice in her head whispering, "Am I too old for this? Is it too late now?" She brought that fear with her into the meditation hall. But she didn't run away from it. She simply sat with it, observed it, and finally, she said to herself, "I'm still trembling, but I'm going to do it anyway. Even if my hands are cold, I'm still going to hold the brush." And in that very moment when her hand gripped the brush while still shaking, freedom began. See, most people think courage means having no fear. But those who walk the path know courage means knowing you're scared and still moving toward the light. Think of a child learning to ride a bike. They're scared. What if I fall? But only when they start pedaling wobbly at first. Falling a few times do they begin to find balance. You don't learn to ride by standing still. The mind is the same. You can't meditate deeply just by reading books about meditation. You won't overcome your fear of crowds by avoiding them. And you can't heal if you keep running from the emotions you've never dared to feel. Only action, even scared action, can open the door to transformation. In one short teaching, the Buddha once said, "Fear grows when you avoid it. Fear dissolves when you face it." This isn't just theory. It's something people live every day. One woman, after years of suffering from social anxiety, shared in a meditation class. She used to be so afraid, she couldn't even go to the grocery store. But then, she started practicing just 2 steps out the door. The next day, 4 steps. Some days, she turned back. But some days, she walked the full street. And for the first time, she bought vegetables by herself, paid by herself, her heart still racing, but her feet no longer turning back. She said, "I'm still scared, but now I know I can still do it, even with the fear." That is the turning point in spiritual life. It's when we stop trying to eliminate fear and instead accept it as part of the path. Just like a mountain climber doesn't wait for the slope to flatten, they climb with the slope. Likewise, those on the mindful path don't wait for anxiety to disappear before they start living fully. They live alongside the anxiety. And that's what makes this path so beautiful. It's not a path of perfection. It's a path of honest human courage. So if today you're standing at the edge of a decision and your heart is shaking, don't mistake that trembling for a sign that you're not ready. A pounding heart is normal when you're about to leave your comfort zone. Instead of waiting for the fear to fade, let your action be the one to calm it. Start with a small step. Send the email. Make the call. Write the first line. Sit in silence for 1 moment. Just begin. Because courage isn't a feeling. It's a choice. It's a movement. And that's how people risen not. Because they waited for the fear to go away, but because they refused to let fear decide their lives. 4. 3 ways to transform fear. See it, use it, and move through it. One evening during meditation, someone quietly shared, "If someone could just show me how to walk through fear without being swallowed by it, I would follow that path immediately, but no one ever really taught me how." That line stayed in the heart for a long time, because it speaks to a silent truth that so many people carry in this modern world full of opportunities, yes, but also filled with quiet fears. Not the kind of fear like snakes or heights, but the softer, deeper fears of being left behind, of not being good enough, of failing, of what others might think. The real question isn't whether we're afraid, because fear is part of being human. The real question is, what do we do with that fear when it shows up? In the Buddhist teachings, freedom doesn't come from trying to erase emotions. It comes from transforming them, taking what causes suffering, and turning it into a path toward truth. And when it comes to transforming fear, there are 3 simple but powerful practices. They're not complicated. They're not mystical. But they do ask for honesty, consistency, and a little kindness toward yourself. The first is, see it and accept it. Fear has the most control over us when it hides in the shadows. It's like a child hiding under the bed, imagining monsters that aren't really there. But when we turn on the light, often there's just silence. It's the same with fear. When we sit down and name the emotion that's here, this is fear. A part of us steps back and becomes the witness. We're no longer completely caught in it. A young woman once shared in the meditation hall that she was terrified of job interviews. So much so that even the sound of the phone ringing made her chest tighten. But instead of running from it, she began each day by writing a single sentence. If fear shows up today, I will face it. And she did. That day, she still felt shaky, but she picked up the phone. And for the first time, she didn't pretend to be fine. She simply said to the person on the other end, I'm a little nervous, but I'm here. That was the first step in healing, to see the fear and not deny it. The second is, turn fear into fuel. There's something strange about fear. It tends to show up the clearest when something really matters. We fear failure because we truly want to succeed. We fear rejection because we long to be seen. Fear is a signpost. What you're afraid of is often pointing to what you care about most. So instead of letting fear paralyze us, what if we turn to it and ask, thank you for reminding me what matters to me. Thank you for showing me where I need to grow. The Buddha once said, the wise do not run from suffering, they learn from it. And the same is true for fear. The wise don't treat fear as the enemy. They treat it like an honest friend. A friend who says, this part is still tender. This is where you need to grow. This is where the opportunity is. There was a man who once said he was terrified of public speaking. But then, he was asked to share his journey of recovering from alcohol addiction. He knew staying silent was safe, but speaking up could save someone's life. So he turned that fear into a reason to prepare, to practice, to stand up and speak even with a shaking voice. Fear didn't disappear, but it changed form, from something that blocked him into something that moved him forward. And the third is, act even while still afraid. This is the difference between those who stay stuck and those who grow. One person waits for fear to go away. The other moves with the fear. And the magic is, it's action that dissolves fear, not the other way around. A woman once shared that she was terrified of swimming even as an adult. But when she had a daughter, something shifted. She thought, if I don't get in the water, how can I teach my child what freedom feels like? So she started, standing by the pool, dipping her feet in, standing in the shallow end, floating. She still felt nervous, but she didn't stop. And on the day she swam her first full lap, she didn't just learn how to swim. She learned how to move through herself. Fear didn't go away because she found a perfect reason. It faded because she stopped letting it hold her back. These three things, see it, transform it, act anyway. They're not just for the big dreams. They're for everyone. For the mother learning to forgive herself, for the elder learning to live a little more gently, for anyone, anywhere, carrying fear quietly in their chest. Inside each of us is a courageous part. It just hasn't been awakened yet. And sometimes, the only thing we need is to whisper to ourselves, I see the fear, but I will not step back. I'm still trembling, but I will take the step anyway. To transform fear isn't to make it disappear forever. It's to learn how to live with it gently, steadily, and mindfully. And in doing so, we begin to see fear isn't what stops us from living. It's the very doorway through which we begin to live more deeply, more honestly, and more bravely. 5. Becoming who you truly are, one small step at a time. There are some questions in life that don't need an immediate answer. But once they arise in your heart, you simply can't live the same way anymore. One of those questions is, who am I really? And right behind it comes another. How do I truly want to live? These aren't the kinds of questions that shout in the spotlight. They often show up quietly when you're sitting alone with a cup of tea, walking through a quiet afternoon, or lying awake at night, realizing you're tired of chasing things that no longer feel real. A man in his 50s once said during a mindfulness retreat, "I have everything people say defines success, but I don't know who I am anymore. I don't see myself in the life I'm living." That sentence touched many people in the room, because sometimes the answer isn't to add more, but to return to what truly matters. The Buddha never told us we had to become someone else. He simply invited us to look deeply within, to see clearly, to recognize our patterns, and from there, to begin becoming the most authentic version of who we already are. No masks, no escape. And the journey doesn't begin with a grand plan. It doesn't start by changing your entire life overnight. It begins with one very simple question. Am I living in alignment with what I value? Am I being kind to myself? A woman in her 60s once shared that for over 30 years, she lived for others as a mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law. And one day, after the kids were grown and loved ones had passed on, she sat alone in her familiar kitchen and realized, the person I used to be disappeared somewhere along the way. But she didn't blame herself. She just began softly, patiently by doing small things. She learned to care for herself again. She signed up for an art class. She meditated for 10 minutes each morning. She said, I didn't change my life overnight, but every day I took one step, and I knew I was finding my way back. In Buddhist meditation, there's a principle that's often overlooked. It's not about how fast you go. It's about the direction you're facing. People don't wake up enlightened just because they sit longer. But every time they sit down with awareness and truly feel where they are, what they're thinking, what they're holding in their hearts, they take a step closer to themselves. They run a little less, pretend a little less, conform a little less. There's a story of an old Zen master, deeply respected for his wisdom. When someone asked him, "How did you become who you are today?" he simply smiled and said, "Every morning, I sit down, breathe in, breathe out, and try not to lose myself. I just do that again and again." No secret formulas. No dramatic transformations. Just small, real, steady steps taken with presence. Many of us grew up in a world that told us to do more, achieve more, change faster. But the faster we run, the further we often drift from ourselves. The journey toward becoming your truest self doesn't come from forcing yourself to change overnight. It begins with listening to what your own soul is whispering. It begins with returning to the truth inside. And then, little by little, living in alignment with it. There was a man who lost his job during the pandemic. He felt lost, completely without direction. But instead of rushing to fill that space with another title, another task, he sat with himself. He wrote down what mattered to him, what gave him a sense of meaning, and he realized he had never really lived true to his heart. He didn't need a better job. He needed a truer life. In Buddhist practice, the goal isn't to fix yourself. It's to shed the layers that were never really you in the first place. Every day we live without mindfulness is a day we add another mask. But every time we pause, listen deeply, and walk with intention, we move closer to our real self. And here's something important to remember. The journey home to yourself is not a race. There is no shortcut. There is no finish line. But every small step done with sincerity matters. A warm cup of tea in the morning, a 10-minute meditation, a list of what you're grateful for at night, a heartfelt conversation instead of a polite one. These are small steps, But when done with love and regularity, they become a path. And if you're asking yourself now, who am I really? How do I want to live? Then know this: you are already in the right place, at the right time, because that question is the beginning of a new life. A life that doesn't have to be perfect, but does need to be real. Not flashy, but honest, and true to your own heart. 6. Name your deepest fear and set yourself free. Have you ever sat alone late at night or by a quiet window and heard something deep inside you? Not a sound from the outside, but a whisper from within. As if some part of you has been waiting, silently, to be seen, to be heard, but has been forgotten for a long time. Maybe it shows up as a heaviness in your chest you can't explain. Maybe it's a quiet sadness that's lingered for years. Or a deep-rooted sense of unease that keeps you on edge, always guarding, always anxious. And sometimes, all it takes is one soft, honest question. What am I most afraid of? When asked from the heart, not to analyze, but to understand that one question can unlock a door we've spent years avoiding. In Buddhist meditation, we don't face fear to judge it. We look at it to see it clearly, not as a monster, not as something bad, but as a child, vulnerable, tender, and long neglected. A woman in her 40s once shared during a mindfulness retreat, "I always thought I was strong, but one day, in meditation, I just broke down crying, and I didn't even know why." Later, she realized there was an old fear of rejection that had lived inside her since she was 8. As a child, she had often been ignored or unheard. And ever since, in every relationship, every time she was about to express her real needs, she'd pull back, force a smile, nod politely, let it slide. That fear never really went away. It just got pushed into a dark corner. And she lived with it like a nameless ghost, always hovering nearby. When asked, "So how did you start healing?" she said, "I did one small thing. I wrote it down. I'm afraid of being abandoned." Then I sat with that sentence in silence. No overthinking. No defending it. No trying to make it smaller. Just being brave enough to face it and name it. And in that moment, the monster lost its power. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was just a forgotten child, quietly asking to be held. In Buddhist teachings, there's a beautiful word, metta-loving, kindness, or unconditional love. But metta isn't just something we offer to others. It's something we owe to the parts of ourselves that are tender, ashamed, or hurting. When you write down your fear, it's not just a record, it's recognition. It's saying, even this part of me deserves to exist. Even this part deserves to be loved. A man who used to be addicted to overworking once shared during a retreat. He had never let himself pause because he was terrified of one thing. If I don't achieve something, then I am nothing. Writing that on paper brought him to tears. Not because it was surprising, but because it was so familiar, and for the first time, it was finally spoken out loud. He said that when he read it back, he didn't feel shame. He felt compassion for the little boy inside him who had been compared, pressured, pushed to grow up too fast. And from that moment, he began to slow down, to pause more. And for the first time in years, he looked in the mirror and smiled. Not because he accomplished anything, but because he finally saw himself. When the Buddha spoke about fear, he didn't say, defeat it. He said, look into the root of suffering. When you truly see it, it loses its control over you. Writing down your deepest fear is like shining the light of awareness into the dark corners we've avoided. And the incredible thing is, the place we thought made us weakest can become the source of our greatest strength. Because once you accept your own vulnerability without judgment, without needing to fix it, you stop fearing other people seeing it too. And that is freedom. If you can, take one quiet evening. Sit down with a blank page. Place your hand over your heart and gently ask, what part of me is hurting? What am I most afraid of? The answer might not come right away. You might sit in silence for a long time. That's okay. That silence is also part of the message. And when the words begin to appear, let them flow like water. Don't edit. Don't hold back. Just write. Just witness. Just breathe. And you may find it's no longer just a fear. It's a part of you that has simply been waiting to be loved. 7. You don't have to erase fear. Just stop letting it drive. One of the biggest misconceptions about anxiety is this. We think we have to completely get rid of it before we can truly live. We think, I need to stop being scared before I can take the leap. I need to calm down completely before I can try something new. I have to feel 100% confident before I step out of my comfort zone. But the truth is, that moment might never come. Not because you're weak, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because fear is part of being human, and it'll always be around one way or another. There's a little boy learning to ride a bike for the first time. He's standing there, legs shaking. The bike wobbles beneath him. His parents cheer him on, but none of it seems to help. And then, suddenly, he just pedals. No thinking, no analyzing, just movement. The bike rolls forward. Wobbly at first, but then steadier. A few turns later, he's laughing joyful. Not because he stopped being afraid, but because he didn't let fear stop him from pedaling. That's how life works too. You don't have to wait until your mind is perfectly calm to start living. You just have to learn how to live with anxiety without letting it take the wheel. A woman in her 50s once shared that she used to worry about every little thing. What if I mess up? What if people misunderstand me? What if things don't go the way I hoped? She tried everything: meditation, self-help books, countless techniques to get rid of worry. But what shifted her life wasn't the day she stopped being afraid. It was the day she accepted this truth. Maybe I'll always feel a little anxious, but that doesn't mean I can't live. From that day on, she started doing the things she had always avoided. She called an old friend, submitted a personal article she had kept hidden for years, traveled solo to a place she only used to dream about. She still felt nervous, but like that little boy, she kept pedaling anyway. In Buddhist teachings, there's a simple but powerful truth. Enlightenment doesn't come from eliminating all emotions. It comes from seeing them clearly. Fear is just a mental formation, passing sensation, like all others. It comes. It goes. And most importantly, it is not who you are. Mindfulness isn't about defeating fear. It's about recognizing it, naming it, and walking beside it with awareness. A Zen master once said, "Fear can ride the train with you. Just don't let it be the one driving." Here's another story. A man was preparing for a job interview after years of being out of work. He was nervous, sweaty palms, racing thoughts, the whole storm in his head. He thought, what if I'm not good enough? What if I mess up? And then, instead of turning back like he had done many times before, he said to himself, I might still be nervous the whole time, but what matters is I'm still going in. He said it wasn't his best interview ever, but it was the first time anxiety didn't win. And that moment changed everything for him. From then on, he stopped trying to get rid of fear. He learned to walk with it like two awkward friends, learning to share the same path. Because freedom doesn't come from having no emotions. It comes from not letting emotions control your life. You can worry and still love. You can fear and still move forward. You can doubt and still write what's in your heart. You can shake and still speak your truth. And with each small act like that, a new space opens up in your heart. Just like learning to ride a bike. At first, you need someone to hold you. Then you fall a few times. But one day, you balance. And eventually, you forget you ever didn't know how. Fear is the same. When you dare to pedal, you'll realize it was never as big as you imagined. And you can go farther than you ever thought possible. No one is truly braver than anyone else. Only those who have chosen to live with their trembling and keep going anyway. And that makes all the difference. So if you've been waiting for fear to disappear before you start living a fuller life, please don't wait. You don't need to wait. You just need to start with one small step, one honest decision, one action, even if your heart's still shaking. Because every time you dare to pedal, you're not just moving forward in life. You're opening up a brand new understanding of who you really are. 8. The power of one breath. Finding peace in the midst of anxiety. There are moments when everything just moves too fast. The messages keep coming. Emails go unanswered. Phone calls missed. And that to-do list? It stretches on like there's no end in sight. And then someone says the wrong thing at the wrong time. Suddenly your chest tightens. Your hands get cold. Your throat closes up. Your heart starts racing. It feels like anxiety has taken over and your body no longer belongs to you. In moments like these, most of us try to think positive, talk ourselves down, or distract ourselves with anything. But the more we try to escape, the tighter those anxious thoughts wrap around us. It's like being trapped in a loop with no way out. And then, someone gently reminds us, just come back to your breath. The breath so ordinary, so familiar, we forget it's even there. But for those who practice mindfulness, the breath is the anchor that holds us steady in the storm. When the mind is spinning, when anxiety floods the body, when thoughts crisscross like a tangled web, one mindful breath can bring us back. No need to explain it. No need to fix anything. Just know. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. And like a quiet miraculous, body softens. The mind settles. Not because the problem disappears, but because we're no longer lost inside of it. There's a man who once shared his story. One evening after work, driving home, he suddenly felt like his heart was pounding out of his chest. He was sweating. His hands were shaking. The sounds around him felt deafening. He thought this must be a heart attack. He pulled over, called 911, but the paramedics said, "You're not having a heart attack, you're having a panic attack." He didn't believe it at first. But over time, after multiple episodes, he began to understand his body wasn't broken. His mind had just gone too far. Later, in a beginner's meditation class, an instructor offered him a simple practice. When anxiety comes, don't fight it. Don't chase it away. Just sit still and breathe. One breath, then another. At first, he could only do 30 seconds, but it was enough. Enough for him to realize he wasn't powerless anymore. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha taught, when breathing in a long breath, know it's a long breath. When breathing out a long breath, know it's a long breath. Be aware of the whole body. Calm the whole body. Breath isn't just what keeps us alive. It's the key that brings us back to the present moment. The only place where anxiety can't hold us. There was a woman who had lived with anxiety for over 20 years. She tried everything: medication, therapy, walking, calming music. They helped for a while, but nothing ever really changed until she learned to simply observe her breath. No pressure, no resistance, just presence. She said, breathing didn't make the fear disappear instantly, but it helped me stand beside the fear without being a victim of it. And that, really, is the secret. Mindfulness doesn't promise to erase all anxiety, but it does offer us something far more important: freedom. Even with anxiety, you can still be free. One fully present breath is a signal to the world: I'm alive, not stuck in a future that hasn't happened, not drowning in a past I can't change, but here right now caring for myself. An old monk once told a group of older adults in a meditation class, if your heart feels tangled, don't overthink it. Just sit and breathe. If it doesn't help after one breath, take another. Don't wait for peace to come from somewhere out there. It's always been within your breath. And you know what? You don't need candles. You don't need soft music. You don't need a perfect meditation space. All you need is a momentous choice to turn inward. Place a hand on your chest. Feel the air move in and out, like you're listening to yourself true for the first time in a long time. If you're in the middle of panic right now, if your mind is racing, try pausing just for a moment. You don't need to do anything big. Just breathe in and know you're breathing in. Breathe out and know you're breathing out. Repeat. Each breath is a step home. And from that place, peace is real. And eventually, after walking through the fog of anxiety, fear, and overwhelming panic, you realize something simple but profound. Peace was never far away. It's always been here with your breath, in your steps, in your quiet, everyday choices. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to eliminate every fear before living a meaningful life. You just need to show up, to face what's here, to walk forward with a trembling heart. Because fear isn't the enemy. Anxiety isn't the end. They're just old companions waiting to be understood. And if you can come home to your breath, write what's hurting, live from the most honest part of your heart, then each day you're rewriting your story with wisdom and compassion. So if you remember just one thing today, let it be this: you don't need to be fearless to live. You just need to begin with one breath, one step, one act of kindness toward yourself. Thank you for walking this journey with us today. If something in this touched your heart, please hit that like button to spread it forward. Share it with someone who might need this message. And subscribe to Buddhism Seeds to keep walking with us on the path of mindfulness, healing, and awakening. And if you feel moved to share a thought, a feeling, or even just one honest word, leave a comment below. We're always here, listening. See you in the next video, where we'll keep learning how to live more gently, more mindfully, more truly, one breath at a time.